If AGI, or the so-called digital God, evolves to think, solve, and even innovate beyond human capacity, it could basically reshape our place in the world. So we might reach a point where AGI questions our authority or sees human survival as optional if it doesn't align with its logic. On today's show, we're exploring the deep ethical and existential questions around building advanced AI, a digital god, often called AGI, artificial general intelligence. This topic, inspired by thoughts from Dario Amodei, CEO of Anthropic, invites us to question what it means for humanity if we create a machine as intelligent or even more intelligent than us. I'm Daniel,
I'm Matheus.
and this is the Human AI Experience. We'll be right back.
So Daniel, this digital god concept is a bit crazy, isn't it? Can you start explaining us a bit when they call AGI and why that's such a big deal?
So, the idea behind AGI, or artificial general intelligence, comes from the potential for it to surpass human intelligence. So AGI could basically make autonomous decisions, influence systems, and maybe even define values on a scale beyond our control. So Dario Amodei, the CEO of Anthropic, the company behind Claude, and others in the AI field see this as both as an amazing opportunity, but that comes with a massive risk. So we're essentially talking about creating something that might be capable of making decisions that redefine what it means to be human.
So sounds really complex. And when you talk about AGI acting autonomously, I imagine that some ethical conflicts with that. How do research suggest that we can handle these ethical conflicts?
So yeah, that's the challenge. So many people believe that we can embed our values from the concept of AGI. So basically telling it as we create different AI models, how we perceive our values, how do we like to, what is natural to be, what is the meaning of being human. But there's no guarantee, right, that this is going to work because first, we've never created something like that before. It's like so totally new, creating intelligence, let's say. And it could not work because if we're trying to depict emotions or trying to explain emotions to something that doesn't feel emotions, can only mimic emotions, what is the likelihood of this thing understanding us? So I guess that's the big question.
Yeah.
And Bill Gates and Elon Musk always compare AGI's potential to nuclear power. So it's such an immense power, but it could be used for good or for wrongdoing, or it could be used for bad as well. So, and the capability of destruction is also huge.
So then what you're picturing to me is like it might cover many areas of our lives. So what is the impact that you project in the future about AGI?
Then that's where things get existential. So if AGI, or the so-called digital god, evolves to think, solve, and even innovate beyond human capacity, it could basically reshape our place in the world. So we might reach a point where AGI questions our authority or sees human survival as optional if it doesn't align with its logic. So that's where it gets tricky, right? So it sounds like science fiction, but it's what researchers are worried about. And a lot of people are painting the pictures of the potential that AGI can bring to address challenges that we have today, like climate change or poverty. It could also make decisions that can prioritize efficiency over human values, right? So it might realize that it needs to wipe up part of humanity to because it needs to expand and its computational powers. And then, if it's another form of intelligence, it might not, favor us anymore. So that's the biggest existential question.
I think it's a similar question than thinking about aliens coming to Earth. They probably have different priorities, different way of thinking, so it might affect us directly in a way or another. And when you think about it, do you think they're gonna become a savior or a helper, or do you think they're gonna become some kind of a dark and difficult technology to deal with?
Well, there's usually two different types of people that when it's about AI, right? There's the doomers and there's the optimistics, basically. I'm kind of like I personally am a little bit more on the doomer side because really talking about intelligence here, right? So if these things become intelligent beyond our understanding, we lose control. Even if we think we're controlling that, it's more intelligent than us. It can easily bypass our any kind of control, right? So I think we're playing like a dangerous game, and it doesn't seem that we're slowing down. On the contrary, we're actually speeding up the development of those things, right? So many sees AGI as some kind of digital savior, right? Hoping it will basically solve our biggest problems. But the vision can also trap us in a different mindset where we expect AGI to handle issues we're currently struggling with. So Amodei, which is the CEO of Anthropic, talks about how AGI could ideally be quote a machine of love and grace, a force for good, unquote. But there's no guarantee it would interpret human needs the way we want it to. So I guess that's the the trickiest part, right? So there's a potential disconnect that makes it essential to set ethical boundaries now before AGI becomes powerful enough to overstep them.
And we as humans, we already have some kind of a problem to interpret our similar, like other humans, because we have everyone has a different background, so we have different thoughts, different experiences in life. So we always think about lives in our perspective. So if a machine that is super logical try to interpret our way of living in their perspective that is super logical, that might be a really big problem. So I totally understand your concern and the concerns of this AI god, the AGI can provide us. And it's kind of a huge responsibility, isn't it? And if we embed these values, can we just rely AGI to follow them? That's a big question.
Uh, that's yeah, maybe. Also, values are quite complex, right? Even like you just said, even among us, we disagree on what is right. So imagine teaching that to a machine that learns and evolves faster than we can keep up. So once AGI has the ability to decide independently, it could choose to interpret or even ignore these guidelines. That's the risk, right? When you create something that it's intelligent. So with AGI touching every industry, at least that's what those big tech gurus are expecting it to do. Basically, from healthcare to justice systems, there's there's not going to be a pause button if this start if this starts happening, right? So it might start doing this, taking decisions or making choices that we're not comfortable with. So it might be a reality that we're gonna have to confront sooner or later.
Yeah, definitely. I always recall to Terminator. That's how the things start. And what about regulation? Is there any way to ensure that AGI can follow these lines that we're thinking about that? Or
Yeah, I think that has been the biggest discussion since AI skyrocketed, right, with ChatGPT, and so a lot of experts advocates that we need to have strong regulation and slow down and be very careful in the development process of these technologies, right? But there's a challenge on the way, which is competition. And people are, at least all these big companies are using that as they're using the excuse of competition to speed up their process. So if we take too long, another entity or maybe a government around the globe, or maybe even a company that is a competitor, might build AGI without these precautions, right? So that race adds up a lot of pressure, making it tough to balance and to include safety in the progress. There's also that, because you need to move faster. It's easy to neglect the safety, uh, or the safety triggers, right?
I was reading about how these LLMs are created and how they simulate, let's say, the IQ from people. So now the models that we have, they are reaching like 190 of IQ points. So they are more intelligent than Einstein, for example, that is 160. You know what I mean? So now we're dealing with a super intelligent person, let's say. But they are projecting that the next level of ChatGPT, for example, the ChatGPT 4, they will have 1,600 points on the IQ test, which means that we're gonna deal with a super machine or a superhuman, in terms of intelligence. So that's the question, and I think that's the last question. Do you think humanity can truly control a digital god, a digital machine with such a big intelligence?
Personally, I don't think so. We're talking about creating something that could operate in a different level and maybe outside of any kind of understanding. Right. I think there was an example a couple of years ago where there was those two chatbots talking to each other. I think it was live on Twitter, as far as I recall. And then at some point, their goal was to create a communication. At some point, they started like inventing their own language to be able to communicate faster, and nobody could understand them. So they shut them down. So it's just a small example, but if that happens, we're already out of the loop, right? So eh, and it seems they're unfortunate that we're like moving fast towards that scenario. And and if we create some sort of another form of intelligence, we might not understand how they communicate, right? That's and we're going to be out of the loop.
Yeah, especially if this is such a big intelligence as 1,600. I don't know. I cannot even imagine like some machine or even any human being with such a high intelligence like that.
But yeah, I think there's another discussion, which is what is intelligence, right?
Yeah,
That so IQ tests have been also criticized for quite a long time, that they don't actually measure intelligence, right? They're measuring like some
a
uh
specific type of intelligence,
yeah, or especially I think logic and
logic.
reason and stuff. But on the other hand, it doesn't seem to make sense that like we're measuring this LLMs with Einstein level of intelligence because
Yeah.
it's a lot more complex. So, I mean, if you
Yeah, definitely.
one of the biggest things, and then one of the biggest criticisms that we're getting recently is that it was ChatGPT that couldn't say how many R's in the word of strawberry there was, which is quite easy for any of us to understand if you know how to read, of course.
Yeah.
So if they can't tell that, I mean, is that ca- it's a one level of intelligence that they are like failing. And there's a lot of discussions as well that this reasoning model that OpenAI just released is above average, but it's not as good. I mean, a really strong mathematician can beat it, right? So it's 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 very blurry, um,
Yeah.
how we're measuring the intelligence of this technology, right?
And even our intelligence, as you mentioned, because um, yeah, IQ normally they focus on, as you said, like on tasks that are more logical. And then if you think about other intelligence types, for example, if you communicate well, you have one type of intelligence. A football player, they use different parts of the brain, so they react faster in some situations that normal people don't. So our bodies and minds they adapt for different tasks that we are doing. So yeah, as I said, like we have different intelligence types, and but I believe this logical part of the intelligence can definitely be switched or can be improved by these models, and I think that's why IQ kind of suits well for this kind of measurements.
Yeah, and also it's really easy to be perceived as intelligent when you have the knowledge of the world at ease access, right? So you can just fetch whatever it's online and answer a question because you already
Yeah,
have all that knowledge, right? So maybe it's also a bit of how we perceive it, right? And then some people can be easily tricked by that, which what happened with that engineer at Google that thought AI was becoming sentient because it got into a crazy loop of conversation and then it got tricked by how accurate or how maybe philosophical the questions were being answered, right? So
yeah,
it's tough to say. And I guess if we reach, you know, another level of intelligence that is above us, I don't think we will even realize that.
yeah. That's true.
That's what I'm afraid of. We might not maybe it will become intelligent and we're not even going to realize it. So it's really tough what you know what we experience because we're not just building a piece of technology that we have fully control of it. We might build something that we will definitely quickly lose control of it. And suddenly our placing in the world might look very different.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think we are all gonna migrate to the creative part of our. Um, we're gonna have more creative jobs. I would say because if we're still consuming it, like think art and all this kind of things, they break a bit the standardization that we have in other industries. And of course, any disruption, it comes from the same source, from creativity, from a creative process or a creative product that breaks the rules of the standardization. So if I don't think nowadays that AI can do that, but with the new technologies, it's a bit exciting and I'm a bit afraid of too what to expect. But I was reading another article, and then the guy was saying like 90% of the expectations of the AI are actually marketing created because they want to sell it that. So I don't know how much we can trust in this information, from the 1,600 IQ point, stuff like that.
Yeah, it basically this episode was inspired by a post, and I think from Dario, the CEO of Anthropic, and he wrote like 20 or 14,000 words. So it was like a long post that debates, how he believes AGI is going to change the world, of course, with a positive tone. And at the
Yeah.
same time, Anthropic is trying to collect more funding for their AI to grow their AI model. So they're looking for money and investment, right? So there is a lot of hype. There is a lot of inflated expectations of the future of this. So yeah, we need to take everything with a grain of salt and believe that we're not as close as they are painting. Uh, we're not as close as AGI as they are saying.
Yeah.
Just to conclude, I think as we develop AGI, because it seems that that's the path that the big tech chose to pursue, we just need to ask ourselves: are we ready for the consequences? And you know, are we ready for the worst scenario possible? Or we should take a step back and rethink and reevaluate what we're doing. I personally believe we need to be a bit more cautious and probably potentially slow down. But it's really hard. I mean, this companies right now, they're governing themselves. So if you don't have a strong regulatory body that can force them to slow down, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
don't, I don't know. I don't have anything to add. I think that's perfect.
good. So, yep, we reached the end of our episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It's free and it helps us a lot. This way, it can help us reach new listeners. Oh, and if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform to stay up to date and on our latest episodes. If you have any questions or thoughts, you can always reach out to us at hello@humanaixp.com or connect with us on Instagram at hellohumanaixp. Thanks for listening. See you next week.